Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition, soon to be a part of the Roku TV network. Live from the All America city of Mooresville in North Carolina, the eighth largest state in the United States of America. On this show, we talk about innovation, global affairs, and continue to navigate through a pandemic which seems to be never ending. Today, I want to share some observations with you about Omicron and talk a little bit about what a post COVID world will look like. The latest developments here in the United States mirror a lot of what's going on in Britain and other countries. We've seen a real surge of cases, hospitalizations are up, but things are looking a little bit better in terms of this thing peaking out sooner than we think. Cases are coming down in Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and they've fallen by more than 30%. And in Colorado, Florida, and Georgia in the United States, cases are down by more than 10%. Now, there's a silver lining in the clouds. The first reason why there's such a reason to be positive is that the booster shots do seem to be working here in the United States. If you get your booster, you're much less likely to die or get severely ill. You really more have like a common cold. The other thing to observe is that the risk of spread, once you get vaccinated and boosted and you isolate yourself, you can recover from Omicron fairly quickly. And the risk of spreading it and dying significantly go down. As we begin our discussion today, we have to ask ourselves, will this be over? The situation here in the United States is still looking fairly grim with over 2,000 deaths a day. But as we look forward for the next few months, it could be in retreat, the Omicron variant. And this may be true in other nations around the world. And if that happens, there's no guarantee it will. But if it does happen, will we ever be able to return to a sense of normalcy? Will this pandemic become more like the flu, a common cold, one that we know that we have to vaccinate, that there will be future variants, but the future variants will be less severe? What will this mean in terms of returning to office? Will we move away from distance learning and these kinds of technologies back to more in-person meetings? Or has the acceleration of digital technology created a new normal and standard for us to do business, like what we're doing today, although we are broadcasting all over the world on this stream? And finally, schools. There's been a lot of isolation, a lot of kids that have fallen behind in their education. How will we catch up with getting back to in-person school? And will we see a decline, as we talked about yesterday, in gun violence and homicides? As Fareed Zakaria said 2 years ago when this pandemic started, there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happens. Well, I don't know about you all, but the last 2 years for me has felt like a century, or at least a half a century. Today, we have with us Mark Lee, Nick P.O.D, and others from around the world joining us. And tonight there is the worst president of the United States. I will not be there, but if you could give us the presidents that we'll be talking about, that would be wonderful. And thank you all for being here with us today.
Yes, today we'll be talking about Hoover. That's definitely one that I know a lot of people were very excited about having him in the conversation. Clinton, and of course, we've still got some others involved as well. So it'll be a nice conversation, and we've actually been getting some interesting votes. You know, Trump is still leading and all of that, and I may come back with some reports as to how it's going and who some of these amazing people may be and all of that. But that's who we've got online, and I know a lot of people will be very much excited by that and will be very much wondering how this all goes in that regards.
Great. Really today I wanted to talk about, just your observations of, what will a new normal look like in your all's opinion? Has this pandemic, the reason I would recommend 10 Lessons of a Post-Pandemic World by Fareed Zakaria for everyone to read, because it talks a lot about other pandemics. And I think one thing is, wherever you are listening in the world, what has happened with your cities? And do you believe that cities will return to the way they were, or do you believe that the use of technology and broadband, if we can get some of the stimulus money in the United States, for example, and if it's happening around the world, will people be more comfortable of moving out of urban areas to rural areas because they won't necessarily need to work out of their home? And how is that going to affect the commercial market space? So that's one question to ask as we have this discussion on World Edition. And what is the new normal going to be like for cities? What is the new normal going to be like for work? The future of work. I don't know about you all, but I don't feel like I'm ever going to be able to go back to a life where I had to drive into work every morning and come back in the evening from where I live. Now I can work whenever I want. When I need to go, I go. When I don't need to go, I go. When I want to stop a little early, I can stop a little earlier. I'm in better shape. I haven't missed a day of exercise in a year and a half because I don't have to worry about putting myself in a car back and forth. Is that going to be the new normal? Right? And then the future of healthcare. Are we going to be more conscious and sensitive now of germs? I don't know about you all, but when you go to a place, are you more comfortable? Will we be wearing masks from now on? So these are, some of the questions I wanted to pose to my panelists today to talk about what will the new normal be like. So I'll kick it off with you, Mark. Or Nick. Mark?
Mark or Nick, who's going to answer?
Well,
Mark
Mark,
looks like
Nick,
he's busy. So
Nick,
yeah,
Nick, you take it, and then I'll come back with the answer in a minute or two.
I'll take this one, Steve. Here's what's going to happen, and it's already happened. Right now, we got a big problem in this country. At least in New York City, where I'm going to be next week, the occupancy rate in office buildings is down to 25%. Not the vacancy rate, the occupancy rate, which means that people aren't going to their offices, which means, and we discuss this almost every week on Modern Investing, which means the person who owns the building, the commercial building, could be in trouble financially because sooner or later the tenants are going to terminate their leasehold arrangements and they're going to be stuck with a lot of empty space. Now, I've been down that road before. It's not a pleasant road. When you're I had a master lease on 10,000 square feet. Okay. And I had a lot of offices that were unleased and frankly unleasable at almost any rate during the economic crisis of 2008. So we're going to see as a restructuring, I believe, in the real estate market, where we have another phenomenon that's going out. Housing is tight. There's no place available and everything's expensive. So here's what might happen. I say might because things do change. The office buildings may start being converted to condominium units. Now, to do that is very expensive. Let me tell you, the owners of these buildings aren't going to want to do the conversions, but that may take place. And of course, after the pandemic, the real question is, when is this going to end? Are we going to change our habits relating to healthcare? Habits change. We're not pretty good at that, so I don't think you're going to see that take place. Another thing that's really big out there, and I've been getting on the websites of our friends from this particular country, China. Now, here's the thing. I'm trying to broadcast into China, but it's very difficult. China is kind of a one-way street, but don't underestimate how competitive they are, and they want to beat the pants out of the United States. We are totally blinded by the fact they have no love for this country. Okay, I mean, when I say that, obviously there's some that are and some that aren't, but there's an element in China that really do not like the United States of America. And I'll give you some examples. First of all, they talked about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which I think we're talking about tonight. Okay. And they go, well, you do know that Franklin Delano Roosevelt made his money in the opium trade in China. In other words, all the money that was made by the Delano Roosevelts, the great liberals, was by pushing opium on the Chinese people. And I go, let me think. Did they teach me that in high school? No. College? No. So I had to go to the internet, which knows all, and Wikipedia. And lo and behold, there it was. The Delanos made their money by engaging in the opium trade. And the Chinese are still mad at that. You know, the fact that we allowed they call us imperialists and capitalists to go into their country and rape them. Here's another thing they're mad about: Laos and Vietnam. How do we respond to the millions of people that the United States just carpet bombed indiscriminately? Okay, and I'm having a hard struggle with that argument too. This is what I'm saying. The media here is so blind to this whole issue of China-U.S. relationships, it's unreal. So that's the reason I'm interacting with the Chinese now. The other thing that they show is the train system in the United States is appallingly pathetic. And they went around the subways in New York. They're grimy, they're ugly, they have graffiti on it. They just look horrible. Then they go show the Chinese railway system. The Chinese railway system's fast, sleek, new, and modern. Let me tell you something. That part, unfortunately, they're right about. Our transportation system relating to trains. I'm not saying airplanes, airports, trains. It's absolutely pathetic. And now they're creating this maglev, which is going to go 700 miles an hour faster than the planes, literally. Okay. The whole what's going on in China is not being talked about in the press. They kind of like ignore it. What is really happening is they're gunning for us, baby. Okay. And they have the weapons to do it. You can add all the people in North America, add all the people in Europe, combine them. We're half the population of China. They have unbelievable resources. So all I can tell the listening public, especially if you're an American, learn Mandarin, okay? Because the thing is, eventually the new business owner will be a Chinese company. I mean, it's just going to happen. And
hey, Nick, did I ever tell you my Mandarin story?
I don't know. I don't know any Mandarin.
I said, did I ever tell you my Mandarin story? Or
Mandarin.
Steve, I don't know if I ever told you my Mandarin story, but it actually comes to what you're talking about. But a friend of mine was actually in the whole idea of studying Mandarin, and she actually studied at a very early age. I think she was into the arts and still is in the arts to some degree, but she was studying Mandarin, and she went to a Chinese restaurant with some African-American friends and some other friends of hers and all of that. And the Mandarin folks were speaking some very negative things about the people that she was with. I don't know whether they were using the N-word or whatever, but as it turned out, my friend Shelley Stonecipher was there with these folks. And as she relayed this story to me, they realized that they had been basically cussed out and said some very negative things, but she understood what they were saying. So she basically told them, I don't know who y'all are, but we're getting ready to leave because we don't like your attitude and everything. And then they were, I think, shocked, but she had studied Mandarin. So she knew exactly what they had said. And then everybody left. And I don't even know, I think that restaurant became another restaurant. And the other restaurant that it became is still in existence. But yeah, those old owners, they might have lost some significant business because they did not know that somebody in the audience actually knew what they were saying because they were speaking Mandarin. So it is important to, one, know the language, and two, realize that people might actually understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and the thing is, the U.S. press really doesn't pick up on it because, first of all, like I said, it's hard. It's one of the most difficult countries we try to beam into. The people in Lithuania are cool. Ukraine, I get reports from them all the time. But then when I beam into China, other than posting on websites, which they review prior to posting, it's next to impossible to get into China, the programming like World Edition in there. I think over time, things like that will change, but they really do slam our history over here. I mean, it's like, and again, it's an element. It's just like, if you think the Republicans and Democrats are bad, guess again. Go to China, baby. Okay, they have their own version of Republicans and Democrats. The only difference is they'll lump all the Republicans, Democrats together, and every evil sin that we created will be flushed into our face, from slavery to the opium trade to the bombing of Laos. And not all Chinese. I'm just saying there's an element who view the United States as the great Satan, even today. In other words, and I'm sitting on the website sitting there trying to defend it. I'm going like, carpet bombing Laos. How do we defend that? Slavery for a quarter of a century. How do we defend it? Opium trade. How do we defend? In other words, I'm sitting there going, how do you defend what they're saying other than going and attacking them,
Well,
saying, "But what about Tibet?" or something
I'm
like
sorry I
that.
can't be there tonight, but I think the key is remember when you're evaluating the presidents, and I'll be moderating the next one after this. Just look at those key achievements, and then look at how they dealt with crisis.
Right.
And I think, regardless of the past of how they got made their money, and I think Roosevelt, still, in my opinion, ranks as one of the best presidents because of his performance on the job and the fact that he was reelected 3 times or maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
They changed the Constitution, but he did
Okay.
create a lot of the big
All right. All
government.
right. All right. And let's say all that is true, which is true. Okay. And he's funded by the opium trade and destroying the Chinese people. Okay. Now, here's the real problem, Steve. Okay. And this is the way I see it. When I'm studying history, and I was Phi Alpha Theta in college in history, that whole part of history is omitted. And this takes place not just in this area. There's a lot of the history that takes place. Remember, it's written by the victors that is just omitted from the curriculum. Generally, Chinese history and Indian history are omitted altogether. In other words, when you study world history in the United States, you study European history. African history? Are you kidding me? I had to go take, I think, a separate course on that because it was never offered.
And
So,
speaking of,
yeah.
yes, exactly. And speaking of India history, I am going to reach out to him or
Mhm.
Swadesh Chatterjee
Yeah.
or Sanjay Puri from the U.S. India PAC about coming on next week to talk about India Republic Day.
Yeah.
So we look forward to having them. That's the day India expected the Constitution, and we want to talk about where India plays into the foreign policy of the United States in a post-COVID world. Are they
Yeah.
becoming more important with what you just talked about with China, with the looming
Yeah.
threat of North Korea, with now the emergence of Russia as a possible ally of China?
Mhm.
This is going to make the conversation very interesting, right?
Yeah. And
So
we do have to talk about India because of something else that's going on. We know they have skirmishes in the borders of Kashmir, but the Indian and Chinese trade is up to 125 billion. In other words, there are more deals being made with India and China than you could possibly imagine, which startles me because you would think they would be natural competitors, but they're not. Apparently, there's a lot of business that transacts between India and China. Another thing very interesting on India, like I said, IBM has more employees in India than they do in the United States of America. Most of the technology sector in the US and is outsourced into the technology sector of India. India, prior to the pandemic, was going to grow at a rate equal to China in terms of their GDP. Because I was watching India pretty carefully. I'm going like, wow, 8% GDP growth in India. So India is more, in my opinion, a natural ally of the United States than China. China is a natural competitor of the United States. I mean, they're intent on competing and winning and being the world's largest economy. By the way, I don't think they have any problem with that. Ultimately, they will succeed in that area. We will not be the world's largest economy. We'll be the second largest economy, still
yes,
probably the largest military, but not the largest economy.
well, let
And
me.
if yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Steve.
exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and all you have to do is see what's going on over there. And our press here, our people here, we're asleep at the wheel, literally. I mean, the thing is, go look at their train system. I mean, when they show me this, go to the website Understanding China. When they show me all this stuff. Oh, by the way, you can sign up free, Understanding China. I'm giving them a plug. Okay, but the thing is, when you see all this, then you start realizing there is an issue that's going on that the press is ignored. In other words, we'd rather talk about whatever. They'd rather talk about Kanye West and who's that other lady, Kardashians.
Kardashians.
Okay, right. Than China. Which is it's going to be big. In other words, in the next 10 years, the biggest issues that are going to take place will be in China. In other words, it won't be the United States of America. It won't be Kanye West and who's that other lady again? Kardashians. It's going to be China. Okay, it's like in real estate. They say location, location, location. The world economy and the changes post-pandemic, China, China, China. Okay, they are, and like I said, go to the website. Join it. It's free. They have 123,000 members. Like they're not, the minute China sends people over, they send hundreds of thousands of people over. I mean, it's like, boom, go to the website, register, start listening to the conversation over there, and then you'll know you're an American. Forget the Democrat and Republican garbage. That's garbage. That's what that's what the politicians want you to hear, so you donate to their campaigns. Here's the real problem. It's right over there. It's China, and they are unabashedly
But
want to beat the United
Nick,
States.
a question about China being the problem, and I understand what you're saying there.
It's
But
not a problem. It's just that learn Mandarin and learn how to eat Chinese food, and your next boss will be from some guy from China. I mean, that's just
like Chinese food. And Chinese food is
I
good.
like
But
Chinese food.
I did have a question for you though, which is that isn't China having its own economic problems? Because they got this whole scandal with like a construction building and some other things. So
Sure.
I'm wondering, doesn't China have some of its own issues as well? So I understand what you're saying
Yeah,
about.
well, of course, they have their own issues. But the thing is, the thing is, they have their own issues, Mark. But realize you have a population of 1.6 billion people. In other words, you have to imagine you take the U.S. and you multiply it 3-4 times over, and then you have the population of China. So the sectors there are going to be different. In other words, it's a very difficult country to manage when you have 1.6 billion people. In other words, we could double our population, add another billion, and then we'd be close to where they're at, or it'd be in the ballpark where they're at. So they're going to have issues like the real estate issues, the GDP. They're complaining because it's only grow 5% maybe compared to 8%. We grow at 3%. Think about that. Okay, but again, rather than me say, okay, what is the issue? All I do is say, look, here's what you do. If you're an American right now, or you're anywhere, because they allow anybody on their site right now. They haven't banned us yet. Go to this website, go to the Facebook group, Understanding China, and try to understand China. And you'll notice that quite quickly, you are not a Democrat. You're not a Republican. They don't give a rat's rear about red and blue states. They could care less. It's China, America, baby. And you are not China. Okay.
I heard a gentleman yesterday, and he
Yeah,
actually said that same thing. He said that one of the mistakes that America is making, and it's something I hope that we're not doing, but I don't think we are, is ignoring the international market and all of that. Because he was saying that, if you look at it, the vast population does not live in America. We may make a
Right.
very
That's
small amount of the population. So we actually
Yeah.
need to make sure that we are reaching out and telling stories in other places. I'm still trying to figure out how we can get some Spanish programming and some Asian programming and maybe even some, and I don't know how we're doing in the network in creating this, but even getting some translations. Maybe we have to get translated into Mandarin and all
Right.
of that.
Oh,
But
the
that's one of the things
translation
that-
programs. Okay, Mark, the translation programs are phenomenal on the internet right now. Because I got a lot of it comes to me in Chinese. I go, I don't speak Mandarin. I press the translation button and it comes up right in English. So you're going to see more and more of that. And we're going to do this on our show too, that we're going to be able to translate everything instantaneously into other people's languages. The program's already there. They just haven't gone on to the verbal internet programs like what we're doing, like StreamYard yet.
Right.
But let me tell you what's going to happen in the next 10 years, if not sooner. We'll be broadcasting in English and they'll be listening to us in Spanish. Seriously. The technology's already there, just hasn't integrated yet.
Oh, by the way, we did say
yeah.
Roosevelt. He is not on the topic this time. I'm actually going to give you all the results right now because that's actually what I was just looking up was the results.
Oh, really?
But the ones that we will be discussing will be Trump, LBJ, Hoover, and Clinton. And right now, our good friend, Mr. Trump, is winning with 67%. It's a tie for second place, and that is between LBJ and Clinton. And Mr. Hoover is coming in a distant fourth. But both LBJ and Clinton have 13% of the votes in and everything. So that may change between now and this evening. But right now, it is 67%, 13, 13, and 7. So a lot of folks, not a lot of comments. They're just making votes. And we do have about, it's just not bad for a poll, not nearly the numbers we got in our first one, but it looks like we're about 2,500 people that have put in their views and about maybe a couple of hundred votes. But we do have people that are still voting on our worst presidents and definitely looking forward to seeing what we're going to bring them at the end of, well, not the end of the month, but around President's Day and all of that. But that's where we stand right now. Mr. Trump is still there. But I did also see an article in LinkedIn that Steve is not going to like because it swears up and down that Mr. Biden is the worst president. And it was an article that I saw on LinkedIn that somebody was putting out, and they were just claiming that they do not like what he's doing and that they're feeling that he's not being an effective leader. So as a Democrat, what do you think that he can do to become a more effective leader?
Well, I think part of it is that, the first thing is that, and this is just my opinion, um, he's just got too much on his plate. He's just doing too many things at once. And I think it's the old, of course, he's dealing with the pandemic. He's tried to put he got a $1 billion infrastructure bill passed. Now he's trying to put together this $1.75 trillion infrastructure, which is just so much money, which is good, but on climate change, affordable housing, broadband, all kinds of things, right? Healthcare, and then at the same time he's dealing with voting rights, the John Lewis Act, freedom voting right, and then you got foreign policy dealing with Russia, Ukraine, Afghanistan. I was actually on a national show which will air on Saturday on Sirius XM, The Urban View, with Wilmer Leon, a political scientist. And I was actually challenged a little bit on some things going on in Venezuela. And even though we criticized Venezuela, Dr. Leon said, look, things are actually going okay over there because the leaders are giving the people what they want, giving them food, giving them bread, giving, socialism is what people want because they're struggling. And the U.S. just sort of stays silent on it and doesn't really do anything. It allows, many times, befriends dictators that that have been elected. And so the point I'm trying to make is I think Biden's biggest thing is he needs to really come up with a better strategy from a foreign policy perspective. What is the foreign policy of the U.S. going to be? He's pretty much supported Trump's foreign policy on pretty much everything from China to Cuba. And then I think economically, as we get out of COVID, if he isn't able to get voting rights legislation passed, I think you're looking at him possibly working with the Republican Congress and Senate, and then I think he's going to be it'll be hard. But I don't know what the other panelists think about Biden, what he has to do better.
Hey, Sasha, you've joined us here from Canada and everything. So I was wondering, definitely a great chess player and a great investor. Actually, two questions. One involving Nick and you and everything, but I would love to hear what you've got to think about what Biden's got to do better. But I was going to share with y'all something that I learned that I found really fascinating. And Nick, you may find this fascinating as well. I was talking to a gentleman that is launching an app, and because of the Americans Job Act, which I think was actually an initiative that Obama was very much behind and everything, you don't have to be part of the 1% to actually invest in some of these publicly traded companies. Because the gentleman I mentioned, and I'm trying to get him on Media Monday, that has got this social app that's similar to Clubhouse, but has the video aspect of it, like StreamYard and everything. He was saying that he's getting investors. I think the low amount is you start at 117, but he's going after those that are not 1% because apparently the Job Act has made it that you don't have to have the kind of wealth that you used to have because you used to have a whole significant amount of money in order to even think about being an investor. But apparently that Job Act loosened that up and everything. So I guess my question for Nick is, had you heard that? Because that was news to me and everything. And then I'd love to hear maybe if Nick had heard anything. I mean, Sasha had heard anything along those lines, and also his answer to what Biden can do to be a better leader.
Oh, well, the thing is, the Jobs Acts, they created the Regulation CF, right, which is crowdfunding, which has changed the whole scope of investing. And you have to discuss this with your attorney that specialized in securities law. It's like a whole different cat here in the United States when it comes to securities. But it has opened up the investing world. The whole theory is to create more entrepreneurs. There is a friend of ours, John Fanning, created a website called Net Capital.
Right.
And you can go to that website if you're an entrepreneur. We don't discuss entrepreneurship too much on this show, but you can go to that website and you can actually you can actually create your own company and actually raise money through this Regulation CF. Mm-hmm. So I'll give them a little shout out. The name of the company is Net Capital. Mm-hmm. And there's other places to go to, but this place is this company actually already went public. Net Capital did. And it's a place just to raise capital for people that want to get into various different businesses through Regulation CF. So for those who are interested in that niche small business raising capital marketplace, that's certainly a place to go, is Net Capital. And they've done over 1 billion plus transactions since I talked to them, and they're a publicly traded company now. So we'll see. As long as Regulation CF stays in effect, you're going to see more and more potential places for entrepreneurs to go to and entrepreneurship to raise capital for their crazy and wild ideas. Sasha, speaking about capital and investments, I know we have Modern Investing this afternoon.
Yes, it's coming at 1 o'clock as usual.
And I haven't even looked at where the market's going right now. All I did is see Microsoft taking over Activision. That hit the headlines.
Yes,
today.
it's big news.
75. Now, to give you an idea how big this acquisition is, it's like 75 billion or 67 billion. The
Well,
total trade. What?
It's by far the largest acquisition ever.
Okay.
And it's all for cash.
It's all cash. It's all cash. To give you an idea how rich Microsoft, it's all cash.
70, how much, yeah, they're buying Candy Crusher and one other.
Yeah, they're buying Activision.
70 billion?
All these video games. Yeah, it's 75 billion or something like that.
I've heard
To give you an idea how big that is. The total trade between India and China, which they were announcing, which we said on this program, that is the hugest ever, is 125 billion. But that's how big the capital markets here in the United States and how big these companies are like Microsoft. 75 billion, let's purchase it. No problem. Oh, not a stock for stock exchange. We're just going to write a check. Wouldn't you want to be in the room? You know, we're doing the closing. What's this? This is Microsoft's acquisition of, Activision.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they push this check over and it says 75 billion on it.
And by far the biggest winners so far are shareholders of Activision.
I know, of course. I checked that already. Shareholders Activision up 26%, Microsoft down 2.25%.
How long would it take a bank to deposit that check? How long would it take?
Well, let's put it this way: not all banks could clear a check that big. That's a.
I think they will probably put it on hold for 3 weeks.
They're going to hold it for 3 weeks.
Yeah, at least 3 weeks, maybe even a month. But Nick and Sasha, along those same lines, though, I just heard recently, which I'm fascinated that they're going into this and everything. But apparently, Walmart, yes, I said Walmart, the big Walton company and everything, is getting ready to go into the cryptocurrency and NFT space. So like I said, that's the other news that I heard that was very big, was that they were getting ready to go into that whole cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, metaverse space and everything. So apparently, even though there is some doubt about whether the longevity of cryptocurrency is going to be, and whether it's even going to stick around as long as it seems to be very much geared toward the younger crowd. But then I've seen some older folks getting into it as well. But were you surprised that Walmart made that move, either you, Nick, or you, Sasha? But Walmart is going to have its own cryptocurrency.
They could, yeah. But I think that for cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, I think the best place is, and what was the best future, in my opinion, will be that Elon Musk, which he has a huge space program. So people will be able to use Bitcoin to acquire space on his spaceships, and once they will start colonize Moon, Mars, other planets, and there they have to acquire services, they have to buy food or something. They will use Bitcoins to survive on Mars and elsewhere. So that's probably the brightest future of the Bitcoin, in my opinion.
Oh, speaking about Elon Musk, let me tell you the latest play on Elon Musk. This guy has the best press agents in the world. In other words, supporting his crazy causes. Here's what he did, which is totally immoral and unethical. A law firm, Cooley, that they work with, hired an associate that worked for the Securities Exchange Commission, investigating him at the time. He went to the law firm and said, fire him. In other words, what he did is Elon pulled a Trump. Okay, don't you dare hire somebody who tried to investigate me. Now, all this gets basically covered up by the press because he's got the best press agents in the world to suppress, better than Trump even, to create an image of hey, I'm a wonderful, great guy, and frankly, he's like a unbelievable thug, and he pulls stunts like this all the time and gets away with it. And there are people that just love him. Tesla is way out of control. SpaceX is a bomb. I'm just waiting for this whole thing, the empire of Musk, to collapse. It just hasn't done that. And it's the same thing with cryptocurrency. It's a complete fraud. The only question is, when is it going to collapse? What day in the newspaper are you going to read that the SEC declares this to be an illegal security? The IRS says you're not paying taxes on it, and the cryptocurrencies are complete fraud, and the whole thing collapses. It's just a matter of time. Now, why would Walmart do it? They operate in China. And that's the thing I found in understanding China. Walmart actually, you can go to Walmart stores in China, so they're very careful trying to be politically correct with that. But it's just a matter of time when these things implode. I just don't know when it's going to implode. You know, all our markers say that the stuff is bad news.
Nico, but have you ever thought about the strange thing that, okay, each country has its own currency and only that currency is accepted elsewhere.
Sure.
So in the United States, you can have any currency, you can have anything from euros to Russian rubles or something, but there are no good use of them because you cannot go to Walmart and pay by rubles or by euros or any other currency except US dollar. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so where fits the crypto? So crypto now says, okay, you cannot accept euros, you cannot accept Russian rubles and any other currency, Chinese, but you can accept US dollar, of course, but also crypto. So now crypto is in a straight direct competition with the only currency which is actually legally available in the United States. Right?
But let's imagine we created our own currency, okay? And we all assess values to it, and we can exchange it for US dollars. But me, you, Mark, and everybody would rather deal in a cryptocurrency because we don't ever report it as taxes. So I can go buy stuff from, I'll send cryptocurrency to Steve. You know, Steve will give me, some food and stuff. Then he'll come and buy some stuff from Mark, and he'll send cryptocurrency the other way. And we just do a lot of non-reportable transactions. That's what's going on around the whole world. In other words, it's like this. It's a great idea for tax evaders. I mean, but the governments eventually are going to say, hey, wait a minute, we're not getting a piece of the action because all these transactions, if they're done through legitimate channels, would be taxed. And now they become non-tax. So the tax evaders like it. And then you're a purveyor of the currency yourself. Did you know the guy who created the largest, I think it's Coinbase or something like that, in the United States, he just bought a $110 million mansion. Okay, let's get real here. Any businessman knows if you are creating cryptocurrency exchange and you have so much money that you can buy a $110 million mansion, where'd that money come from? Let's not be stupid about it. It came from the stupid people who put money in these stupid cryptocurrency things.
But Nick, there are two things that I've heard that are arguments about the benefits of cryptocurrency, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about these.
I'd like to hear.
One is that they claim that in the music world and the certain worlds that are out there, that it eliminates the middleman. You know, like the agents, the lawyers.
The
I know that's the thing that don't want to have you lose a job and everything, but that's what they claim is to eliminate that middleman that takes percentages and everything, so it's kind of like consumer directly to you. Now, the other thing that I've heard that makes no sense to me, and I don't even know how it would work, is like we've oftentimes said there, some 8 billion people in the world or something like that, and they're claiming that everybody can have their own cryptocurrency. What's the purpose of having a cryptocurrency? It almost sounds like cryptocurrency, and I'd love to know what Sasha's thoughts about this is. It's almost like cryptocurrency is trying to push us back to an old form of financial relations, because it sounds like to me cryptocurrency is trying to push society into more of a bartering position where you would barter and do more of that barter trade kind of thing that was very popular way back in the 16th or 15th century, maybe even further back than that, maybe even the 18th century, but definitely hasn't been that popular recently.
Stone Age. Right. It was the only available means of exchanges that I'll give you something and you'll get for me something equivalent of whatever I'm giving to you.
Let me tell you what a big scam, how big a scam this is. That there's currently, as we're talking, millions of people are being scammed a buy, and I'm going to beat on the Chinese a little bit here because they go onto these websites and they say, I'm going to show you how to make $1,800 this week in cryptocurrency. And the person who's being scammed goes, oh, I'd love to make 1,800. No problem. Send me 900. They send them 900. Okay. Now what happens to the 1,800? Well, there is no 1,800. You just lost $900. And the thing is, cryptocurrency is being used currently as a big scam. Now, you want to talk about Joe Biden. Why is he a weak leader? Okay, and the reason why he will not get reelected.
Yes, let's get back to topic.
Okay, we'll get back to Joe. Why Uncle Joe? Uncle Joe doesn't come down on stuff like this. Okay, in other words, he is an incredibly probably weak leader, one of the weakest leaders ever seen since Reagan, when Reagan was asleep at the office. Okay, and the old scams of the 80s. Okay, that's true. And so the thing is, rather than coming out and hammering this stuff and putting the hammer down, guy doesn't do hardly anything. Or maybe he has the worst press agents in the world. He needs to go talk to Elon Musk, find out what press agents he uses, and get his message out, because Biden's message isn't coming clear across at all. In other words, it's almost like, what is this guy doing? You have to do something all the time. Here's where Trump was brilliant and Biden fails. Trump all the time, through his tweets, his garbage, always kept the American public watching Donald Trump. Okay, so he's still popular today, like him or not. Biden doesn't do jack. So because he doesn't do jack with the media, no one knows what he's doing, and so we assume he's asleep at the wheel, and that's it. So he will not be reelected the way he's going. And watch, the Democrats are going to lose the House and the Senate in this next midterm. It's just going to happen.
And the worst president of the United States could be reelected as the president of the United States.
Well, yeah, that's possible, but highly doubtful. I did when I did the poll on who's going to get reelected, his rating was not even double digits. In other words, the vast majority of the people believe that he's like a 6 to 8% president, not 40, not 30. 6 to 8%. I've never seen anything that low, by an acting president. Gosh, can you imagine that? Watch before I go live. Okay, well, we're not going live. Well, we are live, but the thing is, we're not going to Roku till March the 1st. Then we'll be live on Roku.
Yeah, Spectre Nation, obviously, he has a good point that, I think Trump really played on nationalism. And speaking on Trump, the New York Attorney General there's been some complaints filed about the Trump businesses misusing their power. Stay tuned for what's going to happen there. I think there's efforts made to, make sure that he's not able to walk away from these crises, and that would affect him in running again for the presidency of the United States.
But by the way, a great comment by this guy: nationalism, not globalism. He kept going over red versus blue and not realizing that China is sitting there with a big hammer that's going to overtake the United States of America. It's like their unison and their goal. I don't know, Sasha, if you're going to this website, Understanding China. All I can tell you is understand this. Get ready to learn Mandarin, and hope you enjoy hot and sour soup. I actually do like Chinese food, so I don't really give a rat's rear. But man, they are gunning for us economically to take over, like no kidding, and assume the leadership of the world. And this is something that, media is ignoring that. Spectre Nation, you are absolutely right. They're ignoring it. We're so insular. Oh, let's go red and blue, red and blue. Well, let me tell you, the only red you're going to see is going to come from mainland China in the next 10 years. So I don't know a lick of Mandarin. I better start learning it, because go to Understanding China. You'll start understanding what I'm talking about. Don't waste time with what they're doing over here. Go over there. It's a website. It's part of a Facebook group. They have 123,000 members. Join it. Most of them are from China. You will find out you are a worthless American, that you really are, or European. It doesn't matter. Okay, and that China or Russian. They don't really care. They're just going to run shot over the whole world.
Yeah, I think these are the things that are. These are the. And oh, by the way, it's Chief Justice Roberts asked the Supreme Court to wear masks, and Gorsuch refused. So that's interesting. And a reminder to everybody that the United States is going to
Are you
offer.
are you serious? Gorsuch refused to wear a mask when they're meeting at the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
disrespectful is that? Who is this guy?
and
You know,
and
is he a
also
Supreme Court justice?
the other thing for those of you listening in the United
Lord.
States, just want to remind everyone that you can go to covidtests.gov to order your free rapid tests, 4 of them, and the U.S. is planning 400 million free N95 masks available at community health centers and pharmacies. So those N95 masks are good, and
Yes.
and then we talked about activism Blizzard. A federal judge has approved the deal to end Puerto Rico's 5-year bankruptcy, and in Sudan,
Puerto Rico has what? Puerto Rico went bankrupt for the last 5 years.
yep.
See that didn't hit the media too big.
And Sudan's
The whole
security
country.
forces shot 7 people in a demonstration against the military coup before a
Yes.
visit from U.S. diplomats. That's disruption of democracy. As one thing I got asked yesterday by Wilmer Leon. We are going to be reaching out to Suarez Chatterjee or someone for next Wednesday, India
Mhm.
Republic Day. But he asked me, and I'm actually asking Dr. Leon. He's a political scientist, and he's got a show called Inside the Issues on Sirius XM. I'll be on that show at 11 o'clock on Saturday on the Urban View channel. But he brought up some tough points on Venezuela and other
Mhm.
countries where he really challenged me on the fact that these are failed democracies because, in his opinion, these leaders are giving the people what they want, socialism, and that the United States is just sort of supporting elitist leaders. What do you think? There's truth to that? Because I got to be honest with you, I didn't. What I walked away from that interview saying to myself, I need to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the Southern Hemisphere countries. But I found that to be interesting. He really pushed me on that to
Well,
say, look,
one of the things I'd be curious about, and I'd love to hear Sasha's thoughts about this, is there does seem to be globally a push around nationalism and the whole nationalist kind of view, not just here in the United States, but I would say worldwide, because that seems to be a lot of what Brexit was
Yeah.
about and things of that nature. So I was just wondering, is that what we're pushing toward? Is more societies being more insulated and more concerned about their own agenda? And I know that we went through, I mean, in America, an isolationist period, but it seems like countries around the world are developing that attitude. But I was just wondering, is that a misread on my part, or do you think that more countries are developing an attitude of being in it for themselves?
Well, obviously, the mother of all nationalism is Hitler's Germany.
Right.
So anyone who's following that steps is definitely should be mindful of what's happened with Germany and German people, and how many years, if almost half century, it took Germany to get out of the mess that this little corporal has created. Speaking about Puerto Rico, I always thought that it's too big to fail. So how it could go to bankruptcy, I can't even imagine. Now
It's a restructuring bankruptcy.
oh, exactly.
Okay, they just restructured their crazy interest rate loans and stuff like
Exactly.
that.
Once they will get out of restructuring, they will take over Amazon, Microsoft, and Nvidia.
I wouldn't go that far, Sasha. I
No,
don't
not really.
the real estate there is pretty expensive though. I went looking at like another place to go to during the winter time, but it wasn't cheap even around. So I was going, how could they go bankrupt? They got plenty of assets, but they probably had loans with real high interest rates. There were no other way they could renegotiate. So
Yeah. Now,
that's probably,
the mother of socialism, of course, it was Russia or Soviet Union at the time. And it's been proven now, it's been proven so clearly that that system just doesn't work.
you mean the pure socialist system? See, I think that's the
And
problem
it's
you
been
have.
tried very
Oh,
hard.
okay.
The Russians did the greatest.
No, they did a great job, but see,
Yeah.
here's the problem with these economic systems. It's not one shoe wins all. And the thing is, you need a mixture of systems of socialism and capitalism to work. And that has proved, it's just like bonds and stocks. Do you want everything in high risk stocks? No, you want to have some in safety. It's the same thing with capitalism, socialism. You don't want everything in capitalism and you don't want everything in socialism. You need a mixture. The question is which mixture works the best. And that's it. Nationalism is a big problem. I agree with you, Sasha. That can create the next World War III. Oh, we're going to take over the world, blah, blah, blah. But I got to give a positive shout out to Al Jazeera and our friends in Qatar because they accept our programming all the time. And, if you look at what they're doing, especially in Dubai, It is a very accepting city. It's kind of amazing how international they've become. And Al Jazeera is not there; they're in Qatar. But anyway, I have to give a positive shout out. They're not like China, where they're going to take over the world. They just do things over there. They build things over there, and I don't know. The Arabs, they seem to be very easy to get along with for some reason. I don't get it. I'll have to learn. Like I said, I got to learn Mandarin though.
Well, I know one of the things I wanted to say is that as we look at nationalism, I think it's important. Sasha Starr has made a very brilliant point looking at Weimar Republic in Germany. And the one thing I got from Fareed Zakaria's show about democracy isn't we're not comparing Trump to Hitler or his supporters to Hitler. So
Why
for those
not?
of you listening, well, I
Why
don't think
not?
we don't know that they're killing people or whatever. But the bottom line is there is similarities between um, outsiders coming in and allying themselves with conservatives. So when you think about Lindsey Graham, these other, Republicans that are saying there's a conspiracy, the election was rigged when there's no proof of fraud, that's really how Hitler came to power. He came in on a lie that Germany was forced to surrender. And, he was able to play on that nationalism, right? And so nationalism can be used by leaders, particularly when countries are down and out. And this might barely be what Venezuela and these countries, their leaders are coming in and playing on nationalism, saying, look, we want to be socialist. We're giving you what you want. And you've got Venezuelans in Venezuela that were supporting Maduro, right? And so, anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that there's a vacuum kind of where these leaders see these opportunities.
Yeah.
And, I do think he claims that the rise, the decline of the Republic of Germany and the rise of the Third Reich should be a lesson for all of us of what can happen when governments come in based on conspiracies.
Yeah, but also let's go to Russia and what the arguments were about of supporting the imperialist regime. If you ever go to St. Petersburg, you see this big, huge mansion by Catherine the Great, the Hermitage. Here's the realities, and part of the reason there was the Russian Revolution. The rich people had everything. I mean, every nickel and dime. And it's happening here in the United States too. It's just slowly over a period of time. So don't get me wrong. Okay. And the poor people had nothing, not one dime. And this happened in Cuba too. I know that Castro is bad, and the people in Miami go, we hate Castro, we hate communism.
Yeah.
But let's get real here. The rich people were sucking every dime out of the poor people in Cuba, so they got what they deserve, a revolution. Which unfortunately they got a guy like Castro who didn't do much better. Yeah, Sasha.
Nick, in Russia at the time of the beginning of First World War, and I'm pretty sure 70%, if not more, of Russians didn't have access to $1,000.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I mean the thing is,
which is exactly the same case.
Well, I mean that's what I'm saying. The thing is, in the United States, we're heading the same direction, when 70% don't have $1,000, and then as time goes by, if people can't even eat, housing, and water, then you're creating your own seeds of revolution. Why Elon Musk floats around in his wonderful private jet in his yacht and has his publicity agent saying he can do no wrong, and he sucks off the American government by getting contracts from NASA for SpaceX. He gets handouts from Joe Biden to put electronic vehicle stations throughout the United States, and we worship him like because he's a centile billionaire, and we're creating more and more of these oligarchs out there. Let me tell you something. There is a big problem with that. And we used to have an estate tax. I used to work in that area where they said, okay, when you die, return half your wealth to the government. Now, when you die, keep it all. Let the kids have it. And let the grandkids have it. In other words, we're creating in this country our own royalty. It's happening, and it'll just continue happening based on our tax policies that have existed. Do you know in Eisenhower's age, he had a 90% income tax. He's a Republican. 90% income tax if you're making more than $1 million. There was a leveling field. We don't have that leveling field anymore. As a matter of fact, it's totally upside down. Even Warren Buffett pointed out, I paid less percentage-wise in taxes than my secretary. Now think about it. He's worth nearly 100 billion, maybe he's over 100 billion. I pay less percentage-wise on my income than my secretary. And this is absolutely true. So what we have here is we have this ever-increasing problem with a very ignorant American public because no one ever takes taxes and tax policy when you're in school. So you just go,
Right.
oh, I didn't know all this is happening.
And
And oh, by the way, don't tax the rich. Don't tax them. And if they
and
don't
so
take money from
there's
the
a-
rich, where's
there's a
Shaquille?
great,
They're going to take it from you, buddy.
there's a great financial divide. There is a great
In the United States, yeah.
social divide, the parties divide, the racial divide. By the way, I just saw a couple of days ago absolutely brilliant movie by the name The Green Book. And
Oh yes.
Oh, the Green
Great
Book.
movie.
Yes, that was good.
it's
I
absolutely
did see that one. Yeah, I
absolutely
saw that.
fantastic movie.
Right.
And what is the actual, the real story is that both this Don Shirley and this character Tony,
Mhm.
they became actually friends for life.
Right.
They both died at about the same time in 2013, few weeks apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see that was good about the divide, and I feel sorry for modern investing, Sasha. When 70% don't have $1,000, you just lost 70% of your audience
Absolutely,
right off the bat. So you
absolutely.
just have to realize the only people who are going to watch modern investing are the 30% that have more than $1,000 to invest, and that's just the reality of it. But I can also tell you the reality because I work in that market space. It skews upwards because there's so many people in this country, the United States, that make $500,000, $1.5 million per year that you don't even hear of. In other words, they're not millionaires; they make $1 million a year. You know, and you don't even hear them. They're quite out there, and that's your audience. I mean, and I'll tell you also because I work with them all the time. They're not financially sophisticated like you are at all. They just make a lot of money. It's just
That's good.
it's a whole different cat. So you will have an audience. It's just going to be a shrinking audience, but as it shrinks, they have more and more money to invest.
Hey, Nick, I got to interrupt you. It's been a great discussion, but it's actually time for Steve to kick us on and give his closing remarks and all of that. But definitely a great conversation about investment and crypto and everything else. But let's kick it off to Steve so we can get ready to wrap up and have another fantastic conversation tomorrow. Looks like Spectra Nation will be joining us again in the comment section. And apparently he's a friend of Sasha's because he said so in the comments. But
Oh,
we look
he
forward to
gave good
seeing him and
comments.
everything.
From our family to yours on Pod TV, soon to be part of the Roku network, we thank you for being with us today. Regardless of where you are in the world, we're seeing turbulence, a stormy time as deaths and sickness have ravaged our nation and world, disruption in our democracies around the world, including the United States of America, all while we are dealing with an ever changing world, the rise of China, threats of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, coups in nations like Sudan, and the world we know will never be the same. We on Pod TV want to continue to have that discussion with each and every one of you around the world of what the new normal will be like. We also want to have your ideas of what we can do to continue to talk about the issues of our day in a non-biased, nonpartisan manner. Coffee talk in the morning here at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with my colleagues. We will be reaching out to bring in other analysts and speakers over the next few weeks. And next week, we'll be celebrating India Republic Day. Once again, from our family to yours, this is Steve Rao, January 19th, signing off to each and every one of you. Be safe wherever you are, and may the light and love of our hearts always lift us out of the darkness. Thank you.